Hello and welcome back to Bicyclelegs Talks Music, and unfortunately it's time for another In Memoriam. Overnight on the 11th of June 2025 we found out that we lost the great Brian Wilson, the genius behind the Beach Boys. I'm not going to go into a lot of biographical detail about Brian Wilson. I think a lot of other people will do that, and I'm more interested in talking about how his music has sort of affected me and that sort of thing. I will mention that he was born on the 20th of June 1942, which is significant because it was only 2 days earlier, on the 18th of June 1942, that Paul McCartney was born. Two of the greatest bass players of all time, two of the greatest songwriters of all time, two of the greatest producers of all time. Just two musical geniuses born within 2 days of each other. I find that amazing. Also, on a slightly lighter note, I always found it funny because Paul McCartney's birthday is on the 18th of June and Brian Wilson's birthday is on the 20th of June. Mine's actually on the 19th of June. So I was born right in between the two of them. Obviously not in 1942 though. Brian Wilson, you know, obviously over the years he had his struggles with substance abuse. He had his struggles with mental health issues. I can again identify a little bit with, the struggles with mental health issues. I've had that over my life as well. And it's a tough thing to try and overcome. But, you know, in his latter years, he was out touring, he was, releasing some new songs and that sort of thing as well. He was still out there doing it and he was still great. My only real regret is that I never got to see him live in concert. I've picked out 4 albums that I own by the Beach Boys because I by no means own every Beach Boys album, unfortunately. It's something I really would like to own a lot more of their stuff, but I've picked out 4 that, to me, are important. And I think they're all kind of different from each other, which again shows the breadth and depth of the musical legacy that Brian Wilson left behind. And we'll start with this one here. Surf's Up, Here Come the Beach Boys. You know, this is really early Beach Boys, obviously. And, it really shows what that early sound was for the Beach Boys. That surf music. Even though Brian Wilson himself was apparently not a surfer or anything like that. Yeah. I mean, this was a fresh sound. It was, jangly guitars, up-tempo music. It was, a little bit based on what Chuck Berry had been doing, especially a song like Surfin' USA, which is on this album. But, yeah, they took it in a whole new direction. And those harmonies, wow. I mean, those beautiful harmonies would go on to inspire so many other bands, I mean, the one that immediately comes to mind is the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, beautiful. Although they would do it in a different way. They would do it, more folksy way and that sort of thing. But I think they were definitely influenced by the harmonies of the Beach Boys. So it's if you want to get into surf music, this is a great place to start. Early 60s. It's just terrific, terrific stuff. And, Brian Wilson isn't at the helm producing, at least not on the credits or anything like that. I'm pretty sure he was involved right from the get-go. But he's definitely there in the singing and the songwriting and the playing. The Beach Boys were still sort of playing on the records at this stage. When we get to the next one that we're going to have a look at, they were really just the vocalists for the band by that stage. And of course, I'm talking about Pet Sounds from 1966. what an incredible record. This record has such a reputation, but it's a reputation that is, you know, thoroughly earned. Such a gorgeous record. It's such a groundbreaking record. You know, it still has some great pop on it, like Wouldn't It Be Nice? And Sloop John B, which is like a version of an old song. It's like an old folk song. But it's also got some beautiful experimental, you know, out there music, especially for 1966. You know, the gorgeous Caroline No, the intriguing title track, which is this, you know, sort of strange, weird track. God only knows. What a beautiful song. And yeah, just so. But then some of the tracks that aren't so well known, you know, I Know There's an Answer, Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My Shoulder, Let's Go Away for a While. Just such an incredible depth. To think that only, you know, 2-3 years earlier they were doing this just, you know, fun surf music and all that sort of thing. It's much like the Beatles and their development from just a beat group into doing this, you know, complex, brilliant music just like 2-3 years after they first burst on the scene. And for the naysayers for the Beach Boys, I will tell you right now, this record, Pet Sounds, is what drove the Beatles to make Sgt. Pepper what it was. You know, Paul McCartney is on record as saying that. And, you know, would we have Sgt. Pepper if it wasn't for the Beach Boys and Brian Wilson and Pet Sounds? Who knows? And Brian Wilson was very much the genius behind this album. He wrote all the music except for Sloop John B, as I say. That was a traditional song. He arranged it, he produced it. You know, it's just, this is the Brian Wilson extravaganza in a lot of ways. And, you know, the Beatles and the Beach Boys was kind of egging each other on to take it to new heights. And Pet Sounds urged the Beatles to make Sgt. Pepper. Sgt. Pepper urged the Beach Boys, and Brian Wilson in particular, to try and make the album smile, which unfortunately took decades to see the light of day because of Brian Wilson's struggles in his personal life and that sort of thing. And yeah, so, you know, they'd make this album, and this is a completely different cover than most of you will be used to, because this is an Australian World Record Club version of this album, and that's Wild Honey. And you know, by this stage Brian Wilson had taken a bit of a step back, but he was still very much involved with this record. You know, he still wrote a lot of the songs on this album. And this has a completely different sound again. It's stripped back. It's almost lo-fi. It's an incredible record. It's a short record. This record's only like 24 minutes long or something like that. But they managed to say a lot in a short space of time with the title track and I'd Love to Just Once to See You, and, you know, how she boogalooed it, and Country Air. You know, yeah, this is on the it's got a different label, like the World Record Club label and that sort of thing. But, you know, Brian Wilson's still getting a lot of writing credits on this album, and he's still involved with the making of these records. So, and I think his influence is definitely felt on this album, even though the Beach Boys are becoming a little more democratic and getting a little more of the rest of the band having a say, particularly Carl. You know, and of course we lost Carl a long time ago. So we've lost Carl, we've lost Dennis, we've lost Brian. It's just sad that all these great musicians are gone. And then the last record I wanted to have a look at is one that's relatively new to me, but I knew it had this great reputation. I had to know what it was all about. I bought it, instantly fell in love with it, and that is the 1977 album, The Beach Boys' Love You. And this is such a strange record, and this is very much, you know, Brian Wilson getting back into being in control of everything. He produced the album by himself. You know, Carl Wilson was the mixdown producer, but Brian Wilson wrote almost everything on this album. And musically, he's using synthesizers in 1977, and he's, you know, it's a strange record. It's experimental for sure. It sounds nothing like anything the Beach Boys had done before, although those vocals are still there, you know, and that sort of thing. And then the lyrics are kind of almost juvenile, but in an endearing way. It's almost like Brian Wilson was a bit of a, you know, a boy trapped in a man's body, and you know, that's what he's writing songs. There's a song called Johnny Carson, you know, which is about the Tonight Show host. But you know, things like Roller Skating Child and Let Us Go On This Way. I Want to Pick You Up. The Night Was So Young. It's just a lot of really great tracks, and it's just a really strange and remarkable album to be putting out in 1977. So I love it a lot. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. Brian Wilson was just such a talented guy. And, you know, his music's touched millions and millions of people, and I hope he knew that. I hope he knew how much his music was loved, how much he was loved. And, you know, may you rest in peace. Brian Wilson, 20th of June, 1942. We don't know the exact date of death, but it was announced on the 11th of June, 2025. Please, you know, comment down below and let me know your favourite sort of Brian Wilson albums, Beach Boys albums, any memories you have of his music. I'd love to hear your reminiscences as well, and you know, we can just come together as a community and celebrate this great talent that we've unfortunately just lost. So yeah, please do let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, hopefully not under such tragic circumstances.